Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Allow me to interrupt your train of thought with something that may be one of the most interesting things you hear today. This is Marianne Pastana, and our special guest today is Jason Eastwood, and he's here today to share with us his music from Guitarfulness. So Jason holds a Bachelor of Music degree in composition and a master's degree in musicology from Dalhousie University, where he now teaches the course History and Techniques of the Guitar. Jason was a principal songwriter and guitarist in the renowned Canadian band Disaster Man, who shared the stage with legends like Boston, Beach Boys, Journey, Twisted Sister, just to name a few. So let's welcome to the show, Jason Eastwood.
Thank you, Marianne. Thanks for having me.
Well, Jason, it is such an honor to have you here and to talk about your music. I got to tell you, your music really touches my heart, and it feels like it's the kind of music that feeds your soul. When did you start playing music?
I started playing the guitar when I was in I was 11 years old, maybe grade 5. Before that, I had played around on my cousin's piano. But when I was 8 years old, there's a Canadian rock star. His name is Burton Cummings. He was in a band called the Guess Who. They had a number one song called American Woman. And they're from the city I'm from, which is Winnipeg, in the middle of Canada. So he was doing a special for a national broadcaster here called CBC. And I actually... my aunt worked for the CBC, and I guess I looked like him when I was 8 years old. So they wanted to recreate one of his birthday parties in this scene for this special, this variety special with his music. So I actually spent a couple days with him and just miming one of his songs. The song was called "Never Had a Lady Before," which is hilarious. And I was supposed to mime it on the piano, and then they cut into him playing it. So I did this scene with him, and he kind of taught me how to mime his song on the piano. And I actually had to listen to the record and learn it too. So that was kind of like my first real taste of performing music, even though I was kind of just air banding it. But then, I got into the guitar when I was 11 and really haven't looked back. I got into rock and roll and metal and blues and Stevie Ray Vaughan and B.B. King. And then I got into jazz band in high school. And I was into a guitar player named Randy Rhoads, who played for Ozzy Osbourne, you might have heard of. It was kind of rock. So I was 12. You're right into that music. But he was a classical guitar player as well. So reading all these magazines, just devouring the music, I thought I want to take classical guitar lessons as well. So I started taking some lessons from a gentleman at the university. And I've been playing every kind of guitar ever since. I started teaching guitar actually in high school too. I started in grade 11. I got a job at the local music school, which was great because then I started playing in bands. So I never really had to work any other of those jobs you get when you're a teenager. In the summer I'd work at the grocery store or something. I remember I worked at the grocery store in the produce section. I was so happy when September came because I could go back to my guitar teaching job. But that's basically how I got started.
So of all the music that you mentioned, what really had you gravitate towards one? What was one that just really drew you in?
Well, it's been different stages of my life. I love different styles of music and I love getting into them and then kind of exploring new ones. It's always a new beginning. So for me, first it was rock for sure. And it was, heavy music like Black Sabbath and Van Halen and all these bands at first, which are very guitar orientated, and then I got into jazz very heavily in high school, and then I got I played in bands. I played in bands till I was in the mid-30s. And I recorded a bunch of CDs. I had a band called Disaster Man. We toured and we played a lot of festivals. And we opened for bands like Journey and the Doors, without Jim Morrison, and Cheap Trick, and Boston, and all, Michael Franti and Spearhead. So it was great. We played all these big festivals in Canada, and then I moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is in the east coast of Canada, and I got really into I got into classical guitar again, and I went back to university. And that's where I did a composition degree, and it was all classical composition. And then I did a musicology master's degree. And then I was hired by the university as a guitar instructor, and I taught a course called History and Techniques of the Guitar. So that's when I got really into classical guitar again, and which led me into the guitarfulness stuff, which I don't know if you want me to get to yet, but so basically all the styles, I can really, really get into a style and kind of absorb it. And it's great because there's so many diverse styles of music that you can always keep learning for life. You never master it.
It's so amazing how many, like guitar professionals that we know, they have that classical background. And I was really surprised when you were mentioning some of them. I was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, it never hurts to know theory. Of course, you don't need to know theory. You need to. A lot of great guitar players in jazz and in rock and roll music never really knew music theory, but they could use their ears amazingly. They knew theory as far as applying it when they're playing, but when you go and study classical music and study how to read music and on the university level, that helped me is just understand basically the science of music a little more. And it never hurts. I mean, Charlie Parker, the great sax player, said you have to, you study all your music and you learn the theory, but then you have to forget it when you play, because really you can't think and play. So I love studying music, but when I play, I just try to play, right? But yeah, there's tons of musicians that the main thing is to always have an instrument in your hand and play it, but a lot of them have backgrounds in all kinds of things that you wouldn't know them for, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. When was the first time that you played classical guitar in a public setting?
Well, I first would enter. There was where I grew up. There was a thing called the Winnipeg City Music Festival, and it was a competition. So you'd go and you'd play a classical piece at a nice auditorium or church, and it was adjudicated. And that was the first time I really played in front of people, because there was also an audience. And I remember that was really unnerving. And one thing I realized over the years was, just from playing thousands of shows, is, the nerves are always a little bit there, but they wear off. You get used to performing in front of people. But back then I remember that was a real stressful thing to do. Because you're playing this, especially classical guitar, you're up there in front of the audience and it's just you and the guitar, and you're responsible for everything. When you're playing in a band, at least you've got, three other guys, two other people, two other people to help you out with the music if something goes wrong. But when you're playing up there doing a solo concert, especially classical guitar, which is very highly technical, is a little unnerving. So I guess that would be it. And then shortly after that, I was playing a lot of weddings and things like that. Little gigs like that I got just from my friends, and then from word of mouth.
Do you play other musical instruments as well?
Well, I do a lot of computer electronic music and I play like bass guitar. I can understand piano and I program drums. So I understand all the instruments, but I wouldn't say I'm very proficient on them. Just enough to get by if I need to record parts, because I do a lot of popular music and rock music where I play all the instruments on the album. So I at least understand them, but I'd say, guitar is definitely my main. I think of music almost coming from the guitar first.
Well, I can definitely see that. My goodness, you're so good at it. I mean,
I think,
yeah, I've purchased, your last album. I know you have a new one that just dropped, and I'm excited about getting that one too. And it has me kind of thinking during the time that you've been working and creating this, you have a very specific way that you play music. And I know it's been called the most relaxing guitar music in the world. How did you get to that point?
yes, well, this is a whole new style of music that it kind of just, I guess it's an amalgamation of many things, but it's a style that I think I've just kind of happened upon. I wouldn't say invented; it's kind of come through me. But maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I was still living. I was just finished. How I was teaching in. I was a professor of the guitar, and I was playing gigs nightly, and I was playing in bands, and I was playing in restaurants with guitar, and my life just got kind of out of control. I was like, there's a lot of excesses in the music industry. You're always around. You're usually in entertainment environments. There's drinking, so I was really drinking a lot, and things weren't really right with me. So I kind of thought I've got to change my lifestyle. So I found a local yoga studio. I started doing for before that actually. I started taking a meditation class at the university. And I always done a little bit of meditation, been very interested in it. So this one was taught by one of the physics professors there, and it's just fascinated me. I loved meditating. I still meditate a lot to this day, but I thought I need to expand on this with my body. So I joined a local yoga studio, and as I was going to these yoga classes, I just loved it right from the beginning, right off the bat, because it was just the silence. It was kind of silent yoga, and then they just tell you to do the next pose, and it was hot yoga. And the woman that ran the studio, she recognized me from playing some music around town. She said, "Would you play some classical guitar for one of the classes? We like to have live music in one of the classes." I said, "Sure." So I kind of worked up, a little bit of some ideas to play for the class, and then I went in and I played for this class, and it was just like everything. It was like another vibe took over me. Everything was slowed down, and I kind of played to the rhythm of the teacher and the breathing of the class, and I composed a bunch of music just for the yoga class, and everyone loved it. So they had me come back every week, and then I was doing 2 concerts a week there, like for the classes, playing for the classes. And this music I started composing for the yoga classes, people would come just to hear it, and then they were asking me if they could get recordings. They said they never felt so relaxed before. They've never felt so refreshed and smiling when they're left. So I thought, well, this is great. I was really inventing this as I was going, and I thought this music is truly coming through me from somewhere, so I have to do something with it. So I started making recordings and handing them out to the folks at the yoga class. And, I'd always, my classical guitar playing, people always say it's so relaxing. And I'd always have people saying, "Oh my, like I could listen to you play all day. It's just so relaxing and feels so good." So I thought, and so when this happened, when I started playing these yoga classes, I thought, I was kind of meant for this. I've always played this kind of relaxed feel. So I started giving out the recordings, and people would come back to me and say they listen to it all the time, and their kids are relaxed when they play it, and their pets love it, and they're just in a great relaxed state when they're listening to it. So I thought, I need to put this music out to the world. So at the time too, I was also studying an ancient healing art called Ho'oponopono. My mother is like, she goes to Hawaii quite often, and she's into Huna and Reiki, and she's done a lot of Hawaiian shaman stuff. So I was really interested in that, and I started applying some of this stuff, just saying it, doing the mantras, and I put some underlying sort of Ho'oponopono mantras in some of the music when I first started out. And it really took on a whole new vibe. So the first album I recorded was called Ole, OLE, and this I put this CD out, this album out, and I started this site. I called it to sell the album and get it out there to people, called Guitarfulness. So the site I started on Facebook, and it's now I have guitarfulness.com, but you can go to Facebook/Guitarfulness to see it. And my thinking with calling it Guitarfulness, it's just like the word mindfulness, but guitar. So it's music that people can listen to, that it's not overly distracting and emotional, but it still fills a space with positive energy. And that's what I really was seeing that this music did for a lot of people. And it could fill a space, it could fill your mind, and it could also help, like a meditation sort of thing, where you could sort of release things. And that's, you can get into there's a lot of things we need to release. I started understanding, and I did myself through playing this music, old traumas that maybe, you might think there's a trauma you grew up with. So you might think something's traumatic when you're growing up, but really, when you're a kid, but it wasn't, but your brain still, your subconscious still thinks that. So I started getting into the way this music and healing music around the world all works on the subconscious. And it's just been a great ride. So I put the site up, Guitarfulness. I put Ole up, and I started selling thousands, hundreds of, now it's sold thousands, but I started selling hundreds of copies a month and CDs. I realized that people still love CDs, which is great because I'm pretty old school myself. I love to get a physical copy of some music and listen to the CD. And it started from there. And this was in 2018, actually, that I started doing this. And now it's, 3-4 years later, and I've put out 17 albums, and I just keep growing my music, and I get amazing letters and messages from people all around the world all the time, talking about how my music helps them and it makes them feel great, and different ways they use it. So yeah, that's kind of a long-winded answer there, but
Well, I'm glad you went through that though, because what's interesting. I thought guitarfulness was actually a play on words for gratefulness too. So
yeah,
I was looking at that, going, "Oh, okay, mindfulness. That's actually awesome." But it all fits, especially with the type of work that you do. It's easy to hear how that all comes in through the music.
yes, totally. And all the work that I've done on myself, meditationally and healing and spiritually, it all comes through in the music for sure. And that's the thing with the music, is you've got to be an antenna for it. Like, I realized, like, I have to be open and in a certain space to this music to come through me. But I love that gratefulness. I do have an album called Gratitude, that's out there, and that one you can stream anywhere. It's just on for free, and gratefulness is a big part of my daily practice for sure too. And that's, I never really thought of that. So thanks, Marina.
Well, you're welcome. I never thought about mindfulness on that. I was like, oh yeah, it's got to be this. But it's interesting, the perception that people walk away with your music. Are you still getting that today with the people that listen to your music? Either if it's at an event that you're doing, or if they're purchasing it online.
Yeah, most of at the events, I always get great feedback, and it's nice to play in front of people. But of course, the last 2 years, I'm just so grateful that I started this online adventure, because in the last 2 years, it's really dried up for musicians, of course, with the pandemic situation, and there's been nowhere to play, no gigs. So most of the messages I've been getting over the last few years have been online, and some of the stuff is just amazing. I mean, I've got one lady that she runs a hospice for palliative care, and she said she wanted to do my music. She was playing it for some people, but she wanted to put it formally together with a bunch of spoken word meditation. So she put together this whole series of my music with some spoken meditations on it. And she says they play it all the time at this for this end of life care in this place, and it's just made a huge difference in the peacefulness of it. So something like that, I hear, it just, it's it pulls the heartstrings, and it just blows my mind that I can make an impact with my music in that way. I had another lady that she runs a ranch with horses, and she takes out, there's parents that have just been traumatized by the death of one of their children, and she does a special program for them where she takes them on horses, and they go and hang out with these horses in the barn. And she says she uses my music every night as they play when they hang out for the horses. And I thought, that's what an amazing story. I mean, and then, it's like when I first started out, I thought I have to keep going with this because actually, if one lady, she bought my music, and she's a nurse and she said she works at a care home where a lot of the patients have dementia. So she said she put on my music one day, and all of a sudden, everyone was kind of in a violent mood, and it just brought peace to this whole kind of, part of the cafeteria setting that they were all sitting in. And she said one gentleman that never really responds to anything, went over and sat, and he just sat in front of the speakers and just perked up and smiled and listened to the whole CD. And I thought, this is such an amazing story. So things like that are the ones that I remember the most, of course, because they're pretty strong stories. But a lot of the other messages I get are just, people, I get up every day and I listen to your music, and it just brings peace to my existence. Or, I'm a nurse, and I work 12-hour shifts, and I'm very stressed out, and I just love listening to your music on the way home in the car. And
so all sorts of great feedback. Well, I could easily understand that, because I was so impressed with your music that, we've been talking, and you are going to be the musician for my radio show. And I love how your music just comes together. It's something I think that really kind of resonates with a lot of people, and puts them, like, as you were saying, in this really calm and just beautiful mood.
yeah, exactly. I'm so excited about that too. So thank you for that opportunity. I can't wait to do the music for your radio show. This is going to be great. And because there's something. It's about a kind of a free rhythm, but yet a gentle rhythm. And then there's certain frequencies and certain sort of. It's a lot about the rhythm, but it's a lot about the not hitting any. There's a little bit of tension and release, but I've studied my music, and I kind of understand sort of how it works. But at the same time, there's that, just like I said in the beginning, there's that unknown quality to music where it's like I understand a lot of the theory and everything, but when I just play, it's like Charlie Parker, the jazz saxophone player, said, you just got to forget it. So a lot of times I don't know why this music has such a positive effect on people, but it does, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, you definitely get to be the instrument that brings that music forward, because it is very impactful. I am just so blown away by your music. And I love how, you've got these videos, you've got little short clips of your music, and you're in these great places, with around these beautiful trees. I mean, how do you just, figure out how you're going to have your creative process flow when you're doing that?
Oh, well, I love nature, and I love my partner Zenaida and me. We love to drive around, and we live in the middle of Canada. It's a beautiful spot in the summer. I mean, it's -30 here today, but uh, in the summer, even the winter is beautiful, but it's cold. Kinds of lakes and forest and Canadian Shield regions, it's called. So we love to drive around and just hike and just see these beautiful lakes and rivers and places. And I always take my guitar, and I love to set up. And she does a great job of filming and taking photos of me. And we do little videos in these, because the guitar is portable, so I can take it and I can actually record the sound there through a little portable recorder I have, and I can play in front of these beautiful waterfalls or lakes or in a forest setting. And then I have another friend of mine. His name's Mike Zoof, and he's a drone operator, and he does filming with that. So sometimes I like to go out. I've got a video where I'm in the middle of a lake on a paddleboard, and he kind of zooms in and then zooms out, and you get a whole picture of the whole lake and all the land around. And those drifting kind of videos, and then the live ones playing in nature, I think that really lends itself to the music and really captures that kind of sublime sort of mood. So I love making those videos, and I love traveling around and seeing these beautiful places. They're also inspiring. So a lot of the music I write is inspired by these places as well.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Like, what, do you wake up with an inspiration going, hey, I'm feeling this way. I'm going to start playing this way today. And you just jump out of bed and, you guys go for a hike and find a great place? Or how does that work for you?
Well, I mean, the songs kind of, they kind of, I pick up the guitar and I see what kind of comes through, and then I get an inspiration sometimes, and I'm sort of thinking that loosely in a concept. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, my second album was called it's spelled WAI, but I think it's pronounced Vai, which is water, and in Hawaiian. So I would always kind of, when I started doing that, when I did that album, I said, okay, how do I recreate my concept of, now I used water as a metaphor, where the ocean is actually, like the ocean is our deep kind of subconscious, our soul, right? And then the waves on top are kind of like the world as we kind of react to it. And loosely, I kind of came up with a concept like that. So what I did is I did a whole low frequency guitar kind of backgrounds. And I did this with electric with some effects. So it's very, it sounds like a sort of just a big body of water as the bed track for the song. And I wrote all that first, and that was like doing an ambient. And I call this music also sometimes ambient classical guitar music. So I did that. I did the whole bed track as thought of it as the ocean, and then on top of it, I played the classical guitar melodies. I thought of those as the waves, rippling and coming and going away, and then so I have that concept, but then when I actually sit down to record it, it's just like the music theory. I just have to make sure I get out of my own way and ultimately let the music come through as what it is. So that's kind of it. So I kind of set up ideas. Like one of my second last album was called Resonating Earth. And I did kind of the same thing where I had drones underneath that I thought I found out some of the frequencies that the earth hums to. And I did some low droning tones that I played guitar on top of. And then I've got albums like Peacefully on Guitar, I just call it, which is just, like that was inspired by sitting on the porch and playing on a sunny day. So there's just like, it's just solo guitar and just like nice little folk ideas that I developed coming through there in my own way, of course. And then there's always like I'm just working on one now. It's called Guitar Stories, and it's little analogies or metaphors to to take the music to a place where they always tell a story, right? The songs.
Well, and it's interesting because people also walk away with their own story about your music, so they listen to the music and they're like, wow, okay, and how it impacts their day.
That's amazing you say that. Yes, because I was working on this Guitar Stories album, and I just put together a little bit of a descriptor for it to send out to my supporters, and I was saying, these are little stories with the guitar and I call this Guitar Stories. But yet, the beautiful thing about instrumental guitar music is when you listen to it, it becomes your story. That's it. There's not really a heavy narrative ever with my music, so it brings out stories that they have in their minds, right? So it just becomes a different story for everybody, like you said, and I just love that.
So, what do you enjoy most about being a musician, especially the work that you do?
I think that the thing I enjoy the most is actually creating it. I love playing it. I love getting feedback. I love bringing joy to other people with my music, and I love that it can have a great impact on people. So I mean, that's fantastic. But as far as my experience, I think there's nothing that gets me in the zone or flow more than just when I have a new idea for a song or an album, or I sit down to create a song or to compose a song, because then it's just this new idea you grab out of the air, and you make something out of nothing. And that's always been the most fun for me. I think even since I was started playing, and when I was probably 13, 14 when I got my first it was a little cassette 4-track recorder, so you could record one, like say a bass guitar part and then a guitar part and a vocal. You can start really composing, recording music in layers. So I started programming drums. So I started doing music by myself and just sitting in my room. A lot of time spent by myself. I mean, I grew up an only child, so it was a lot of time. It was a lot of time just spent with myself creating music, and I just think somehow that just takes me to another place. So it's got to be number one for most enjoyable. But number two is close, is playing live for people too and connecting with an audience, and I really miss that, and I hope things start to get back to normal here, as maybe they are in America where you guys are, and they're starting to be in the States. But I love that as well.
Oh, I play the album I got of yours all the time. So when I'm working, it's so great because it's so relaxing and you do get into this like vibe with it. So I really love listening to your music.
Well, thank you. Do you? So you just you put it on, and it's good for just relaxing or putting on in the background and doing
Yeah,
work.
I put it on when I'm working so I can work a little bit and have this really relaxing atmosphere that I'm creating with your music. It's just amazing. I absolutely love it.
That's beautiful to hear. Thank you. And I hear that a lot. I get a lot of people say that they use it for work and they put it on the background, and because it's there's not a strong narrative to the music, so it doesn't really drag you away. It's just enough there that it helps you focus, because it kind of creates, I try to create more of a stillness almost with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think people really take away from your music what they need in that moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautifully said. And if that's true, I couldn't be happier.
I know you talked about Ho'oponopono earlier and just how that had an impact on you. I'd love for you to share how that was maybe the first time you either listened to it or started playing music with it.
Yeah. Well, I think I read a book. I read a book called Joe Vitale book, actually, Zero Limits. And he tuned me on to this Dr. Hugh Lin was his name. And he just passed away recently. But I started studying with this gentleman that had been doing in Hawaii. And it's very simple mantras. It's like, I'm sorry. thank you, I love you, and I forgive you. And it's basically, I realized what it was these are mantras that you're saying to your inner child. And I started to realize that there's a lot of it. Like we have this inner child that sometimes is not healed. Like I said, it's got trauma from the past, and it just needs a hug, really. It just, and for me, I found that if I go back, and it's just like a lot of things that were, you know, at the root of a lot of my problems were from this not having this inner child that was like feeling left out. And that's kind of what I really got from it. And reading about Dr. Hugh Len, I mean, what he had done, like just to tell you a little about him, he worked at uh, I guess it was a mental health institution. It was for some of the most violent people that were uncontrollable. And he started, nobody could really, they couldn't keep employees there, and they always had very violent incidents. And he started working there, and he basically didn't do anything except start doing Ho'oponopono and practicing it and with the patients. And he turned this place around where there was some of the people eventually were cured and released. And it's a fascinating story. So that really got me into studying more about what he was about. And, I'm surprised a lot of people don't know more about it. But Joe Vitale wrote about it quite well in his book, Zero Limits. So that was great. And then, and then because my mother had been to Hawaii many times, and she has friends there, and always goes to spiritual kind of retreats, I really connected with the Hawaiian aspect of it, and just Hawaiian music in general. Actually, it led me to there's a Hawaiian style of guitar called slat key guitar, and I never really listened to it until people started comparing my music to it, and then I checked it out, and I was quite surprised. As it's got a lot of the same feel. Some of it is some of my music.
Oh my gosh, that's so impressive. And I've heard about how Ho'oponopono came to be, and you're right, what a remarkable story, and especially how Joe shared it in that book, Zero Limits. It's just remarkable. But to have that firsthand experience with, your family and people saying, hey, your music's really kind of sounding like this, that must have really been, just made you feel pretty good.
Absolutely. And then right off the bat, like my mother's friends in Hawaii, uh, he started with one of her friends is called Kanoa, and he's a spiritual healer. And he got my music, and he started listening to it all the time, and I was and he saw there's something there, and the fact that that was a great some great positive feedback, and gave me the confidence to go forward with it as well.
Do you think the pandemic has really kind of had you focus more on your music and the direction your music's taking?
It's definitely made me focus more on taking on the internet and talking and connecting with people around the world. It's opened the global village, if you will, to me, because it made me realize that I can connect using various media platforms with people all over around the world with my music more than, I mean, any time in history. It's amazing. So a lot of a lot of people are really down on the music industry. A lot of my friends, it's like the gigs have dried up, and it's, there's no record deals like there used to be in the 90s when the music it was $1 billion industry, and you could get a record deal and they give you $100,000 or $200,000 to do a CD. That's all gone. And the streaming money, to tell the truth, I mean, there's big controversy with Spotify right now, and a lot of musicians are happy about it because they really don't pay their artists well at all. So with all that being said, if you can do your own marketing, media, and understand. I know it's a lot to ask, but you have to be more than a musician today. You have to learn how to use websites and use email lists and connect with people through social media and all kinds of things to really you have to become your own promotion person, your own record company. You can do it all yourself. It's a lot to ask, but it's worth it because you control your own destiny. But it's just, you have to put the work into all that as well. Luckily, like, I also did work in magazines for a while. I was a newspaper reporter in Golden, BC. I worked at a small paper there, just to supplement my music career for a while in the early 2000s. And then I helped run a magazine. So I had a great understanding of writing and media, which helped me a lot. But the pandemic is like, when it first happened, there was a lot of people at their computers and a lot of people needed healing and they needed the music. So, I tried to just make it as accessible as possible there, and you've got to go with what the world's doing. So I mean, in that regard, I'd say yeah, it's made me focus more on, and it's made me focus on getting my music out there in a way that I would have maybe not done previously, because when you're busy playing local gigs too, you're busy. You're not you're not worried about the getting your music out to the world when you're playing at a restaurant one night, and then you're playing the local bar the next night or whatever, or theater or whatever. Right?
Yeah, I could see where that would allow you to have greater creativity, where you're not just, you've got time for that as opposed to being focused on these different gigs that would come up.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Is one of the things about being independent and doing, I'm an independent musician. I do all the websites and I do all my commerce and everything myself. And one thing, not having to have a record company or having anyone to answer to is great. I control everything. I have the creative say, and anything I want to put out, I have no gatekeeper. I have a beautiful supporter base that I connect with, and I can serve them as I see fit. Right? I can put out whatever creation I want to do, and I don't have to ask anybody. I can just make it, which is awesome.
Yeah, you get to be your own boss with that.
That's right. Be your own boss. Yeah, definitely. I've had a lot of jobs where I wasn't my own boss, so I'm grateful for it every day.
What would you say is some of the best advice about music that you've ever received?
I would say when I was first starting out, and I told you I'd started taking those classical guitar lessons, and this gentleman named Paul Hammer, who was he was the professor at the University of Manitoba, and he said started teaching me classical, and then he realized I could play this rock and this blues, and he said, "Man, you can just embody any style that you kind of you can understand and get the emotion of any style. So you should keep playing all these different styles of music. Don't just play classical because you're into it now. Like, keep playing that blues." He had me teaching him blues riffs and rock and stuff, and it is always just be open, because it's all just music. And I'd say, right from the beginning, that was some of the best advice I ever got.
I think it's always so important to hear like the advice you get. Because, my goodness, I mean, you make the rest of us look like underachievers with all the work that you've done in music.
Oh, trust me, I've been an underachiever for many times in my life.
Well, and right now with the music you have that's available, what would you say is your favorite song?
There's a song, there's something about the vibe of it I just love. It's like a flamenco kind of dark Spanish piece. And I wrote it, and it's on my album called Way, or WAI, Vei, and it's called Escalas, which is scales in Spanish. And it's there's something about the vibe of that piece. I just listened to it. A friend of mine actually made a record of it, and he put it on Electric John is his name, and he put out a vinyl record, which was half his music on one side, and he put this song on the other. And it's there's something about that song. So I'd say, that's one that comes to mind right off the bat.
I always wonder about what inspires the people who inspire us, you know?
It's funny, what inspires me is, and it's always been other music, to learn more music. And even growing up when I was a kid, there's no internet. Like I'm 50 years old now. So it was in the early 80s when I was playing, I'd get Guitar Player magazine, and I'd see and I'd order, guitar methods out of the back of magazines. But this Guitar Player magazine would always talk about, these different styles of, back then they would cover like new age guitar players. So I'd look, and there'd be like Alex DeGrassi, or there's a label called Windham Hill, and Michael Hedges, and these were all acoustic players. Earl Klugh, Lenny Breau, who's actually from Winnipeg. Lenny Breau is an amazing fingerstyle jazz guitar player. And I'd go seek out these albums at the library, or I'd go to the CD store, and I'd use my paper route money or to buy these albums. Or when I started teaching guitar, I would buy these albums, and it was these guitar players that I'd sit there and listen to and try to emulate, and they were just always inspiring to me. And that was in every genre. I've always seeked it out, and then you have to go do the listening, right? And for music, and that's what's inspiring. Other music is the most inspiring for me for music.
I understand you just dropped a new album. Why don't you share that with us? We'd love to hear about it.
Sure. This is an album. It's called. It's on iTunes right now, and it's only exclusively there. I think it might be coming out on Amazon Music, or you can email me, jason@guitarfulness.com, if you're interested. But it's called Guitarfulness. So just the title of. I've never called an album that. I thought this one kind of sums up a lot of what I do. And so that's, the word guitar, and then FULESS, just like the site, guitarfulness.com. So this album, actually, some of the songs I recorded, there's one called Floating Over Pines, and I was out at my dad's cabin, actually. It's a beautiful cottage in this place called the White Shell in Manitoba. And I was paddle boarding on the lake, and the water was so low that there was trees all under the water, these pine trees, and I felt like I was floating over the trees. So later, me and Zen, like my girlfriend, we went driving around, and I said, "Well, I got this piece in mind." I started actually practicing it that day at the cabin. I wrote it, and then we started driving around. I said, "Well, let's go do a video. I'd like to film this." So I filmed and recorded it right in front of this big, beautiful river with all the pine, and it's called Floating Over Pines. And so that was the first song on the album. I said, this song, I put this video out there, man, and it's really taken off. It's been I don't know how many views it's up to now, but so I put out and then I said, this song got such a response, and everyone wanted this song. So I said, I have to kind of write an album based around this song. So basically I sat down and I put the rest of the album together, and and there's actually a picture of me from the video on the cover. It's just me holding a guitar in the wilderness in the middle of summer. But two of the songs on that album were actually recorded on site. One was in Rainbow Falls, in front of playing in front of waterfalls. Now you can't hear the waterfalls because I unplugged the guitar. It's an electric classical. It's called a Godin. It's made by a Canadian company, an excellent Canadian luthier called Robert Godin. But so I plug it in and to a little recorder and record in front of these nature places like I was talking about. And the rest of it I recorded in my studio. And it's, that's, I have many other albums. A lot of them are only available. I just put out to my email list, and eventually I'll probably make them more available, distribute them. But yeah, there's a lot of people that have first bought one of my first recordings that now every month or so I put out a new album, and that's how they get it. But that's that one. It's called Guitarfulness by Jason Eastwood, and yeah, check it out.
Gotta love it. Well, why don't you spell your website for us one more time? Because I know people, as we were thinking about it, they're like, wait a minute, I want to make sure I get this right.
Absolutely. It's so Guitarfulness.
Just like it sounds. Right?
Guitarfulness.com. Just think of the word mindfulness. There's not two L's. Some people put two L's some once in a while, but it's just one L, just like the word mindfulness, right?
Thank you. I mean, my goodness, your music just has really touched my heart. I'm sure it's really impacting so many people.
Thank you so much. It's beautiful to be on your show here today, Marianne, and great questions. And it's been a blast, and thank you so much. And yeah, guitarfulness.com, or if anybody wants to email me, it's just jason@guitarfulness.com. And it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much. I really had fun.
Well, thank you, Jason. And it's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your music at Guitarfulness. When you visit Jason's website, make sure to take advantage of the Guitarfulness Experience. And there he has listed 4 albums that are a special price for a limited time. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.